Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another review for you all. Now today's review is going to be another book review. I thought I would do something different today and switch it up like I have done before with my reviews of The Life and Death of Peter Sellers and Room by Emma Donoghue. And today's review, I recently reread this book and I've read it many times before, and because this is kind of very directly linked to movies, which of course my channel sort of centers itself around, I thought I would review it for you all and just give my thoughts on this crime classic. So today's review is The Godfather by Mario Puzo, and of course, if you don't know already, this book follows the Corleone family when their empire is threatened by the attempted assassination of their Don, Vito Corleone, who must then pass his empire to his third and undoubtedly favourite son, Michael, who ascends as the new Godfather and asserts his dominance. First of all, I'll comment on the writing because I think that's always a good place to start, whether I felt like the writing method was nice, did I think it had a good flow, whatever. So my opinion on Puzo's writing is that it's nothing spectacular. It's not fluffy or overly descriptive. He's no F. Scott Fitzgerald, let's say, where the writing is just so beautiful that really is the star, I think, rather than the story. It's Puzo's story about the Corleones that is magnificent and that is really the sort of shining feature of this book, where I think with novels like The Great Gatsby, the line between whether there's a great story or it's just great writing is like blurred for me, because his F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing is just undoubtedly beautiful. I think it steals the show. But in Puzo's crime novel, it is the story that shines, and the writing is sufficient. There's nothing wrong with it, and it certainly fits the tone of the novel and of the subject of the novel, because it kind of feels like it's no nonsense, and he's documenting this very brisk crime operation, and so the writing gets straight to the point of the story. There's no messing around, and it's perfectly adequate enough for the book itself. So I won't say that there's anything extremely sort of beautiful or complex about this, the writing of Puzo in the novel. I don't think that there's anything completely stand out about his writing, but what his writing does is that he allows the characters and the story to really shine through, and I think obviously the story is undoubtedly amazing, so that's fine by me. Obviously I found the scenes or the passages involving the Corleone family themselves especially gripping, obviously because I'm a huge fan of the films as well, so I think I know whenever the Corleones are involved I'm going to be more interested than I am when perhaps they're not. But I actually found the scenes with the Corleones surprisingly broken up and sparse, because what Puzo does in this novel is that he switches from viewpoint to viewpoint. Obviously it's written in the third person narrative, but he switches from Michael to Kay and then to somebody completely random like Johnny Fontane, and I found myself wading through the passages where it wasn't focused on the Corleones, it was more focused on the likes of Johnny Fontane or Lucy Mancini, who are kind of outside characters. And I kind of understand that those passages were obviously chosen to demonstrate the extent of the Godfather's power, of how far Vito's influence stretched across the nation. The fact that Johnny Fontane is a huge Hollywood star and his life is what it is, and as it's written in the book, shows just how far the Godfather's influence can reach. And I understand that that's sort of intrinsically implied in those passages with these characters. But I just felt like I had to kind of rush through those scenes with the likes of Johnny Fontane and Lucy Mancini, characters who I'm not particularly as interested in as the main family, in order to get back to the likes of Michael and Sonny, who are, you know, really important members of the family. And I don't know if that just comes from my bias having watched the film so much. That's probably my fault, because there's nothing wrong with the passages involving the outside characters. I just felt that they were rather too frequent and too extended for me. I kind of just wanted to get back to the central story, because there was a lot of stuff about the likes of Johnny Fontane, who is out in Hollywood. He's away from like the central story, and I suppose that's Puzo's way of giving us a nice break and splitting up the time and moving the time on in between. Adding scenes like that will probably just, you know, allow him to further on the story in the way that he pleases. But I just don't find characters like Johnny Fontane or Lucy Mancini particularly interesting, compared to the likes of Sonny, Michael and Vito. But that was just one thing that I felt reading the novel that could have been altered, you know, and kind of wasn't necessary. One thing I did like is the attention to detail regarding some of the background characters, particularly Al Neri and Luca Brasi, who have really interesting and intriguing backstories that time isn't wasted on. They were kind of succinct, and they were very sort of compact within the story, but you still got that detail of knowing where they came from and how they came to be in this position of having known the Godfather and known the family, and now are able to work for them and do the things that they do. So I thought that, you know, learning how they were indicted into the Corleone regime was a really interesting part for me. And although I complained about background characters having too much attention in this novel, the sort of more compacted scenes by comparison, which were maybe a couple of pages explaining Luca Brasi's past or Al Neri's, I thought that they worked a lot better, and they still kept me interested while returning to the main story as quickly as possible. So I think I preferred that method of writing, if you would. Another highlight in this book for me that particularly jumped out was the almost history book-like documentation of the origin of the families in New York and the origin of the mafia in Sicily, which is obviously delved into more when Michael goes to Sicily, having, you know, committed the crime in the restaurant. I think that this provides you with that extra juicy detail. It's complex, it's rich, and it's just, to me anyway, it's incredibly interesting. I don't know if anybody else reading the book would find it a little bit diverting and a little bit boring, but I certainly didn't. And obviously this is missing a little bit from the film. We don't know or get introduced really to the different dons of the 5 families of New York, what they're like, where they came from, what, you know, a little bit of a taster of their backstory. So I think really that kind of thing is almost like an extra for me. Someone who's like a real fan of the universe, and unfortunately I watched the film first, but you know, reading this book just allowed me to get more richer, complex detail and knowledge regarding the sort of history of this crime empire that the Corleones are central to. And I really liked that and really enjoyed it as an aspect of the book. It didn't, you know, it didn't tear itself away from the story, it didn't distract me, it was just felt like a really cool extra. And this again was felt when Puzo included Vito's backstory, his rise to power. I thought that that was a spectacular passage of the book. So interesting, considering how we are introduced to Vito in the beginning as this, you know, really powerful man. He's very cool. He's got this amazingly powerful aura about him. So to learn how he came from nothing and became something is really special. And I thought that just dropping that into the book, even though it comes, you know, I suppose it's rather specifically placed when you think about it, when you think that it's included before his death and also before Michael's ascension to power by comparison. That's kind of makes it more specific, but the way it's dropped into the book is like really cool, and I think that was definitely one of my favourite passages in this book. Now, this little section is going to be kind of spoilerish. I know I've kind of maybe included a few spoilers beforehand, but I thought I'd just do this little section for people who are interested in seeing some glaring differences from book to screen. So things that I immediately noticed that changed in the movie adaptation from the book. In the book, Michael is slightly more of an aggressive character. He's definitely more assertive from the beginning. Michael, by the way, is probably my favourite fictional character of all time, so I was bound to notice that there were some differences because I adore him. But yeah, especially in the scenes with Sonny, he definitely stands up to him a lot more in the book, whereas he's kind of quiet and reserved in the film. But I think I like Pacino's performance with Michael, how he builds it up, and you see this unexpected but kind of always festering character development happen in the film, where it's kind of more obvious from the get-go in the book that Michael is ready to take on the family business. So that was just something I noticed. I also noticed that Kay is less of a doormat. She, only marginally so though. I'm not a fan of Kay as a character. Basically, spoiler, Kay leaves at the end of the book because of what happened with Michael and Connie's husband. She kind of puts two and two together and she decides to get out of there, but Tom Hagen allows her to return. I'm a fan of less time being spent on Kay as possible, so I'm kind of glad they didn't include that in the film. So yeah, kind of, I know that sounds kind of brutal, but I just don't like her. But yeah, she definitely was less of a sort of gullible idiot than she was in the film. And finally, as I said, lots more Johnny Fontane. He only appears twice in the film, but there's a lot of detail about Johnny Fontane's life in the book, and whether you love Johnny Fontane, that might be a great thing for you. I'm not a huge fan of him, so I was kind of just like, I want to get through this to get back to Sonny and Michael, as I said. But that is my take on The Godfather. There were just a few differences there that immediately jumped out. There's probably loads more, but they were kind of more significant ones that I immediately noticed. But yeah, this has been my review of The Godfather. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I adore this book. I adore the films, apart from the third one, and I really have the only points that I mentioned as my negatives regarding this novel. I think it's a classic, and I think that the story is absolutely phenomenal. So thanks guys for watching this review, and remember you can always request movies for me to review by messaging me on my Tumblr or commenting below. Thanks for watching you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!